Let's go with Masters of the Air first.
Okay, so
Um,
Masters of the Air. So just before we get into it, I want to say my familiarity with these kind of shows. I've never watched Band of
mhm,
Brothers. I've also heard it's similar to like
mm,
the Pacific. Is that
the
right?
Pacific. Yeah.
I haven't
Mm-hmm.
watched that either. So this is a pretty new kind
Mm.
of series for me. Um, but um, but I'm liking it so far. Spoiler alert for our reviews. But um, have you seen Band of Brothers in the Pacific?
I have seen Band of Brothers. I have not seen the Pacific actually,
Okay.
but I've seen Band of Brothers,
Okay.
so I'll have a view of kind of comparing it.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about episode one first. And episode one and two were released at the same time,
At the
um,
same time.
but we can talk about them separately. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, I'll go ahead and give my score first. I thought episode one,
Yeah.
I gave it a 7. I thought it was a good episode. Um, some things that held it back a little for me was it's just like it throws so many characters at you. Um,
Mhm.
and so it was kind of hard to keep track. Um,
Yeah.
but um, but I thought it was good. It kept me like entertained. It kept me on the edge of my seat for the pretty much the entire episode. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I thought it was a good start. Drew me in for sure.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'd give episode one a 7. That was my exact score too. I thought it was a good start. And they did throw a lot of characters at you, and it was a little, at least for me, it was a little confusing at times going from
Hmm.
this point, this place to this place, this place. Where's everyone at? Why are they there? All this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Uh, but I mean, as you get through the episodes, you kind of start to piece it together. But yeah, this
Yep.
first episode, yeah, I would give it a 7, 7 out of 10. Do we want to give our rankings for all of them first?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and go first on episode two.
Episode 2. I like that one a little bit more. I give that one an 8 out of 10. Uh,
Yep.
this is this is where I started kind of figuring out the vibe of the show. Uh, the main characters, well, at least the two main ones, Buck and Bucky.
Yeah, which doesn't help the all the characters when some of them share
No,
basically the same name. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no. Yeah, but like some of these characters, like I finally started to learn a little bit. Like Bubbles and what's the guy's name that throws up all the time? What nickname did they
Braz.
give him?
Braz.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you
Yep.
kind of like started to get a feel of these characters and the camaraderie. Like it felt like, I don't know, if episode one like felt like kind of the base, here's the start, you might be confused, but this is the world. Episode two kind of felt like it solidified everything and kind of finding its rhythm.
Yep. I was laughing when you gave your score because we might have the same scores on every one of these because I also gave episode 2 an 8. I thought it was really good. It was better than the first one. Definitely started like recognizing people more, and um,
Hmm.
some of the scenes were really intense. Um,
Yeah.
some of the CGI was a little bit weird in this one, but
Yeah.
it wasn't too bad, so I didn't knock it too much. I still thought it was a really good episode and very intense. So
Yeah, well, there's a few in all three of these episodes. There's a few CGI scenes. Maybe we were just spoiled with Godzilla, but there were a
yeah,
few times like where the CGI was iffy.
yeah,
But like not to the point where it's distracting or anything.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, you could do episode 3.
Episode three, I thought was the best episode so far. I gave that one a 9. And at in episode two, I was kind of feeling like, how are they going to make it? I was worried that it was going to be very similar each time. Like, oh, they're going to go up in the ship and it's going to be like
Mm,
the same thing.
mhm.
But episode three kind of um like helped me feel like, okay, they're going to be able to like make it interesting and
Yeah,
make it intense for each scene,
yeah.
because that episode had some very intense scenes. I was
Oh,
like
for
scared
sure.
for every single character. um
Mhm.
it was it was a really good episode. I thought it was the best one. And I feel like each episode, the amount of characters is gonna um be easier to like know who it is. So
Yeah,
just getting used to it, you're like,
yeah,
yeah, learning the characters and yeah. So that got even better in this one.
yeah, like a little more focus.
Yeah.
This was my favorite episode too. I would actually probably still give it an 8.
Okay.
Uh, just because it's funny to say it, because I agree with you. This episode, I was starting to get a okay. This is gonna be the whole show. Mission
Yeah.
come back. Mission come back. Mission come back.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the way it ended, it's like okay, it's not. It's gonna change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I still don't, and maybe gonna be a little more critical on it because I have seen Band of Brothers, and I can
Yeah.
tell you this is a nowhere near the level of Band of Brothers.
I've read similar things. Yeah.
Like
So
Band of Brothers is pure perfection, pretty much, and the characters in that show are amazing, and it's gritty. Yeah, so this is nowhere near that. So maybe that's why, like, I'm a little more critical.
yeah.
But this is still great. Like, and this is actually Kara likes the show too. My wife,
Oh, nice.
she likes the show too. She thinks it's interesting, and this episode, like you said, it was just intense. We can't really say much.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so yeah, I'll say 8 out of 10. So my three were a 7, an 8, and an 8.
Yep. I went 7, 8, 9. I thought it just got better each time.
Yeah,
But I feel like my scores might end up being a little higher than yours because I haven't seen Band of Brothers.
probably.
I might go back and watch Band of Brothers and be like, man, Masters there was not as good and want to knock down some
Yeah,
points, but you know, we'll see. I'm definitely gonna
yeah,
watch Band of Brothers after this.
yeah. It's on HBO Max, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so is the Pacific. So I kind of want to watch that too, because
Yeah.
it's all the same creators, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but anywho, okay. Well, we get into spoilers.
Yeah. Okay, spoiler for the show. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Um and yeah, we're gonna talk about episodes more in depth. So episode 1. Okay, so
I
this
thought it started out great. What they're kind of at the dance with their girlfriends and stuff, and you
yeah.
kind of get a sense of how like they're really good friends, almost like brothers. And I just have a feeling something bad's gonna happen. Like that first scene, I'm like, one of these two are gonna die.
Yeah, I kind of had the same feeling.
And so like I liked how it started, and then there's Bucky. He was the captain or sarge or whatever he was. I don't
Yeah,
know his position.
the air um yeah, I forget exactly what it's called, but he was the
But he
one that
mentioned he was
basically
gonna,
wasn't
yeah, he
gonna
was
be
gonna
flying.
lead the 384th or
Yeah.
whatever plane uh, team it was.
Yeah.
And he was saying to Buck, which Buck is the Elvis guy. I don't know if you ever saw that movie,
I didn't see it,
Austin
but
Butler.
yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yep.
Uh, he was like, "Oh, what?" He said something like along the lines of, "I'll meet you there," or I don't know. He was saying stuff that I'm like, "Okay, are they ever going to see each other?" I didn't know if they
Yeah.
would see each other again, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I liked that scene, and then he went off, and then this is where it got a little confusing for me because then he went there, and then he went to like a bar, and the bar dude said, "Oh, your friend caused quite a commotion." And I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure, like the timeline of everything.
Yeah. I do think that the dialogue there was funny about how he was like pretending it was a unicorn horn and like
Yeah,
I thought
that was hilarious.
that
Yeah,
was pretty funny. But yeah, it was like, okay, so who was it that went here and why is he here? And yeah, it's just like figuring
yeah,
out who's who and what's going on was a little
yeah. That's
tough.
pretty much it. I'm sure if we were to rewatch this, we probably wouldn't be as confused. Like after this whole thing's
Yeah,
done, this might be the kind of show that might be better on a rewatch, to be honest. But
yeah, possibly. At least the
um,
first few could definitely be that
yeah, at
way.
least the first few episodes. And then what else happened this episode? I mean, they make it to the main base, and what is it, in England?
Yeah. Um, is this the one? This is the one where Crosby's being is sick and then ends up navigating them over France instead of England, right?
Yes.
That was
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that was I can't remember if that was first or if Bucky's trip up was first. Um or it might have been at the same time, but that those scenes I was like, "Oh man, this is them it's like suicide." Like they even say in the show, this is
Yeah.
suicide and it definitely felt like that. It was like, "Oh man, how are they going to make it out of any of this?"
And each submission, like it seems like it gets, from episode 1, 2, and 3, it gets like harder, harder, or more dangerous, more
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, as far as episode 1, because they do go on that mission, and this mission they have to. There's a couple of fighters in the air with them, so they had to. And one of the planes got uh, engines went out, so they decided to turn around or stay with them. Right? Was that this mission? Or was that the
Ye
second episode?
yeah, that's I think the first episode was the one where they turned around and had to go back. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do anything, right? They pretty much had to abort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought
But I like it.
the thing where Bucky I think goes up first and then is told
Yes.
basically like don't tell them, just let them figure it out.
Yeah,
And like
that's
his
right.
struggle
Yep.
with that, and then Austin Butler coming in is like, why didn't you tell me? That was pretty like
He's like, now you know.
yeah. Like what do you say? Like, yeah, it's basically like we're going up there to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say my favorite character is Bucky. I find him the most interesting.
Uh yeah, I like Bucky more than Buck, I think. Buck is kind of just like always stone faced and doesn't really show that much emotion. Honestly,
Yeah.
I find the
The
story
navigator guy.
yeah,
Or
of a couple of the other characters more interesting than these two, like Crosby
yeah.
or Cross.
Yeah.
The guy, well, in the third one, there's a guy that I'm really interested to see where his story goes. So I almost like the side characters more than the main characters
Yeah.
so far, but we'll see.
Yeah, I could agree, especially with Cross. Although I just like Bucky because I think he's a fun character first and
He
foremost.
is,
He's just
yeah.
like a fun character.
Yeah.
But also I feel like there's depth to him. Like unlike Buck, where Buck is pretty right, is probably the least interesting character.
Yeah. One thing about
Uh,
Bucky that gets me is that he sounds just like Steve Rogers. Have you noticed that? His
he kind of
accent,
does, right? You say that.
it's like, I don't know, it must be that Brooklyn accent that he's going for. It's just every time I hear it, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, Steve Rogers is there.
that's
And then
weird.
Buck looks
true.
like Captain America. So,
Yeah, seriously.
so
Yeah, I think Cross. I think you're right. He kind of has had the most interesting as far as going from like not confident, to he's slowly getting more confident. And each time he succeeds in a
yeah,
mission, he's like, yeah, he has a little snow globe that Bubbles gave him.
yeah. The one thing about Crosby, the first episode, I thought this. I was like, how did he get through basic training and they let him be a navigator? And like that just seems like a bad
Mhm.
idea. But he's
Yeah.
he's doing it. He's doing it.
Hey man, maybe he was good on paper, and then you actually get him up in air, and
Yeah, that could be.
because they're like not really a spoiler, but in Band of Brothers is kind of a character like that,
Okay.
where they're supposed to be like the perfect character, and then like they actually see action, and like
Ah, I see.
I feel like that. I feel like that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That
Um,
makes sense.
when you're under the pressure of everything, it's like, God, maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Yeah, and in
But
his
yeah,
in
he's
his
getting through it.
case, his body is literally like betraying him. He can't really help
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. All those scenes in the air were intense. Like all the scenes, they
Yeah.
were awesome.
The first episode, yeah, they had the dogfight with the other fighters, right?
Mhm.
Though those parts I
Yeah.
think are the most tense to me. Like the flak is pretty tense, but
Mhm.
like the fighters flying in, they come by so fast and it just like
Yeah.
rips apart the planes. It's crazy.
Oh, and there's some brutal deaths too,
Yeah, for sure.
like, especially in that third episode.
Yeah. I feel like the first one almost had more like brutaler deaths, but the third one had more of the
Yeah, well, because the
deaths.
third one they had the two deaths I could think of in the third one. Well, one, I guess, was more emotional when what's his face couldn't save the kid that
Yeah,
was
baby face.
Babyface or whatever his
Yeah.
name. So, but then there's another scene, like a split second scene where like it showed some body just hitting the wing and getting split in
Yeah.
half.
Yeah. In
I was
slow
like,
motion.
jeez,
Yeah.
yeah, like, jeez,
Yeah, that
Lord.
was pretty brutal.
But yeah, so that was kind of pretty much episode 1. And episode 2, they were was up that the one where they're kind of talking to the English,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep. The
I like
RA.
that. I liked all those scenes. I liked all those scenes.
Yeah, those were pretty good.
And even towards the end, like I think what episode 2 did really good is making you, like we kind of said, understand the characters and learn the characters a little more. Even at the end when they have the dance and Bucky's like, should I sing? And they're like
Yeah.
telling him no.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
like,
then
screw it, I'm gonna sing.
what I liked is they did a good job of like this was the episode where I really remembered who Biddick was.
Hmm.
The guy who crash landed in Ireland, and Crosby,
Yes.
because he like helped do that. And so it really
Yep.
gave people like stuff to do where you're like, oh yeah, I remember who that guy is now. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you could, yeah, instead of just being another soldier.
Right. And it's tough to do that because like they're all in the most intense scenes, they're all up in the air with like masks on and it's hard to
Masks
tell
and
who it
yep.
is. And but I feel like they started doing a really good job in this episode of making some people
Yeah.
stand
Well,
out.
you can tell who Buck is. He just is doing his Elvis voice.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, and then episode 2, even towards the end there, like, oh, bike ride around
Yeah, that
the
was
place. So
fun.
they're doing kind of the fun thing. And then I thought the end of that episode looked really cool.
How did it
When
end?
they're kind of go out, they hear the sirens and they go outside and it's a bunch of the missiles shooting in the air and the
Oh yeah,
background's like
yeah.
nighttime. Yeah. And
Yep.
Bucky and Buck were kind of talking. Like they were really solidifying that friendship. I feel like something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I know. I don't know to which
Um,
one, but I have that feeling too.
yeah.
It's probably to
And the third
Bucky,
episode,
and then Buck will be still
probably
alive. He just seems like the kind of character with that kind of plot armor. Although I don't know if I
he does.
believe that many characters have plot armor in this show.
I don't either, but I mean Austin Butler's like
Yeah,
biggest name, I think,
yeah,
especially after Elvis.
yeah.
So it's like I would give the show props if they made me think it's gonna be uh Bucky, but ends up being
I hate that their names are
Buck.
so similar. It's so
I know.
annoying.
I keep having to like think for a second. They have actual names
I'm gonna
or
call
you
Buck
don't remember them.
Clevin.
Just call him Elvis, man.
Elvis. Yeah. Uh,
That should have been his nickname. That would have been hilarious. But yeah, and then episode 3 really, I mean, that really kicked it off. This was an intense mission. They had a whole plan. There's gonna be
yeah,
the biggest, flight ever, and then it has to get delayed. The atmosphere was kind of like the calm before the storm when they're
yeah.
waiting in the fog and delaying it and
I feel like this show
cracking
does
jokes.
a really good job of showing, like, to me, being that kind of bomb pilot or like on those crews.
Mhm.
It's like a ton of downtime with like not much going on, and then all of a sudden, like just everything kicks off. And I feel like this show does a good job of like showing them having their
They,
downtime, and then it's like they get the
they
mission. And it's
do.
like go, go, go. Your life's in danger for the rest of the time you're out there. Like, yeah,
And it makes sense. I feel like what it does a good job on because they get like excited when there's a mission, and I was thinking like, why would you get excited? Then
yeah,
I'm thinking they're sitting there for weeks and weeks doing nothing.
true, yeah,
So like one little bit of like, okay, we're actually gonna do something. I know like it's terrifying, but I don't know, I feel like they do a good job of. You're right that just the spacing in between missions, you could feel them waiting and waiting
yep,
and waiting without being boring. You
yeah.
know,
That's true. It's
uh,
not really boring at those points.
it does a good job with that, and it does a good job building it up. And like I said, like before this mission, the fog and the telling riddles and jokes and waiting, and then they send them off, and you could hear the captain or whatever he is, sergeant, whatever,
Yeah,
say,
whatever it
"Oh,
is.
we're sending him to hell," pretty much without because the other two,
Yeah.
uh, what divisions or whatever, couldn't go out with them.
Yeah, so one thing I had was like, why would they send them without the other people? Like that just seems like a
I
suicide
know.
mission. But I read someone say something that made sense is that they had if they were gonna do the mission, which it seemed like they were pretty intent on doing, they had to go at that time because they were the only group going to Africa. And even at the time they left, they
Mm,
got there with very little daylight left and having to like navigate to the airfield at night. They could have just been downed in the desert and been lost, and like so that
yeah,
kind of makes more sense why they had to
it
go
does.
earlier than the other groups. But still, it's like, geez, that's not a fun situation.
The one thing I'll say is, so the creators of the show, I'm pretty sure do a lot of things like very accurate because they I was reading stuff even with Band of Brothers. I mean, with the interesting thing with Band of Brothers is some World War II vets are still alive. So like
Yeah.
they at the beginning of each episode they would have like an interview of
Oh,
the actual people there.
wow.
So and then
That's
it get
cool.
into the episode. So like I feel like a lot of the creators of like this show, The Pacific and Band of Brothers, I think they're very authentic in like what is done in the military.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
I
That's
mean,
cool.
I don't know like if this show like if that specifically would have been done, but like I feel like they've done their research. Like
Yeah.
I'll give them after the other two shows, I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I agree, it's like, oh, don't send them out. Like,
Yeah.
can't you wait another day for like another mission or
Yeah, and the fact that less than half of them made it back. That was the
yeah,
moment when they're like a couple things when like all the planes are dying, getting blown up, and then all the people could do was just like look back and count parachutes. That's pretty
yeah,
like
oh,
you feel so powerless. Like what the heck do you do?
and even
And
Cross, he's like forgets to mark them when they fall, so like
yeah,
we're not gonna be able to find them.
yep. And then
So or
the fact that only half of them or less, yeah, less than half of them made it back. That was when I was like, yeah, there's not that much plot armor in this show. I feel like anybody could die.
no,
Oh, and when
no,
Biddick died too, like that's a pretty big actor, right?
yeah,
Barry Keoghan. He's
yeah.
that I was pretty surprised by.
I was actually surprised by that too. Was the one I was like, oh,
Yeah,
I didn't think they would.
right. At least not this early.
No, yeah, not this early. I thought like, yeah,
And I thought his death, like he was trying to save his co-pilot, and then just his little like, oh god, right before it crashes. That was like heartbreaking.
man, that was the death where I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's serious
So we're
now.
like, they're killing people off because I thought for sure they would keep him, Cross, and then Bucky and Buck and Elvis.
Yep,
Bucky and Elvis. I thought for sure those four would make it.
yep. At least pretty
Uh,
far. Yeah.
well, I just meant like to Africa.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. At least until the next mission, but no,
Yep,
we were wrong, or I was wrong.
yep.
Um, yeah, that the scenes in the air were just so intense
Yeah,
and
this one,
chaotic, and
the dog fighting scenes in this were even more like intense and yeah, like
because it was just
just
chaos, like you said.
yeah, and shredding the planes.
And that
The
scene where Homeboy had to try to say babyface, like we kind of mentioned before, I was like,
yeah,
oh, I mean, I get why he did it, but I feel so bad.
I know. I feel like he's gonna feel bad. Like he's gonna have survivor's
Oh
guilt
yeah,
and have to deal with that. Yeah, that's gonna
because
be
like realistically, if there's nothing you can do, I don't know though. I feel like
yeah,
no
that's
one knows what
tough.
they would do in that moment unless they're in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so that guy is like down behind enemy lines right now, right? He's in Belgium. And I feel like
Hmm.
that's going to be a really interesting storyline, seeing what it's like. He's basically being recruited by what seems like kind of a resistance or some underground organization against the Nazis, trying to get
Yeah,
him
yeah,
out.
because they pretty much tell him right, like you could surrender now and probably live past the war or escape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I ain't gonna surrender now. You ain't gonna live past the war.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah,
Help me
so
escape. But that's interesting.
yeah, that'll
I
be
didn't
really
expect
cool.
to see that side of it.
Yeah, me neither.
Uh,
And I feel
and I
like
wonder
that'll
if he's
help
gonna like,
keep it fresh. Have some scenes with
yeah, kind of
him
two
and
different storylines.
yeah.
Well, probably three, unless if they go back to the. I don't know if they'll show the main base again.
I assume they will get back there, yeah. But I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
not.
yeah. I mean, so I think the writing's good.
Yep.
The acting's good. The CG. I mean, for the most part, I mean, the CG is for the most part great. I mean, we're watching
Yeah.
destruction in the sky. There's just a few where you could kind of tell, like when they're landing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
thought
love
the
the
third
scenes in like the
episode
cockpits and the planes.
yeah, I thought the third episode CG was better than the first two.
Hmm.
And yeah, most of it's you can't tell that much or it looks good, but there's some, yeah, scenes.
Yeah, but overall, we're really enjoying it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like Kara and I, we were, what was it? It was like Thursday or Wednesday. We're like, I want to watch another episode of that, but we can't
Yep.
because it's not till Fridays.
Yeah.
So it's like it's getting me to want to watch it, like another episode. I'm like, okay, like I want to watch this again.
Yeah.
Give me another episode.
I agree.
Maybe I'll just rewatch Band of Brothers in between.
There you go.
um, yeah, overall, I'm digging it so far. Again, I of course just I'm comparing it to Band of Brothers just because I'm human,
Yeah.
uh, and it's nowhere near that. But this is still a dang good show so
Yeah.
far, and I'm digging it.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
What was the answer to the riddle?
I would hoping you tell me.
I can tell you. Yeah. This is a pretty common
That-
riddle. Basically, if
That's
one
what the guy said, isn't it?
yeah, if one person always tells the truth and one person always lies, you ask one of them what the other person will tell you to do. So you basically say like, which door will that other person tell me to take? And then whatever they say, you take the other door. Because if you
Okay.
ask it to the person telling the truth, he'll tell you the person telling the lie will tell you to take the wrong door. So you go to the other door.
Yeah.
If you ask the person who's telling a lie what the truth person will say, he'll tell you the wrong door because he's lying. And then you
Yeah.
go to the other one and take the true one, take the right one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I hope they find that out. Well,
I don't think so because they literally said in the episode, right? I hope you tell me. That was a good
Yeah.
callback to the episode. I like it.
That was a good callback. But yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I'm really excited. There's 10 episodes, right?
I'm not sure. I think.
I think there's 10, which is a good length.
Yeah, that's
And
a
they're
good
long
length. I like
episodes
it.
too. They're like an hour.
Yeah, the first one was like an hour and 10 minutes or something. Second
Yeah.
one was 55 minutes. Third one was like 50 minutes. Yeah.
It's refreshing after all the Disney Plus 30 minutes plus
Oh
5
god,
minutes of
yeah,
credits.
don't get me started. Yeah, don't get
Uh,
me started.